Okay, so now we're going to take our cork piece, and I've already marked down 1.5 inches from the top edge and 1 inch over on each side from these seams that we've already stitched. Some of the stitching that I'm talking about right now we're going to actually do, because we're going to actually make this up so you'll know what we're talking about. But for now, this is just to show you how to do these. But I wanted to do these while the unit is flat. It's much easier to contend with. Okay, so I'm going to keep my cork piece lined up with these lines, and I am going to make 2 rows of stitching along the short sides of this cork piece. And I need to move my needle, so bear with me a second. Okay, and again, I want to stitch approximately 1/8 inch from the edge. But this is where I was talking about how important it is to have your tail so you can grab it. Because we're going to put our needle down, and then I like to tie off or seal that in before I start. And then I'm going to come to the back. Again, I'm going to cross over, and when I get to the fabric, I'm going to secure that end. And I didn't mean to do that, but we're just going to hit the habit, and we're just going to start over, and we're going to stitch in again about 1/8 inch over from that stitching line. And remember, your stitch length is set at 3 inches. And again, I'm going to start here. Before I stitch into the cork, I'm going to secure my thread on the main fabric, and I'm going to stitch across. I'm going to come across, and then I'm going to secure my thread. Raise my needle, pull it out, and then snip it with my handy dandy snippers. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. I'm going to line that up with my marked line, holding that in place, and I'm going to stitch 1/8 inch from that raw edge. I'm going to start with putting my needle down into the actual fabric part of the cube. I'm going to secure my thread and then stitch to the across it, that short end. I'm going to secure the ends. I'm going to do that one more time. I'm going to line it up so I'm stitching 1/8 inch from my stitch line. Again, putting my needle into the actual fabric, not the cork, and securing it. And then stitch across the cork. And when you stitch across in these areas, if you see where this stitching is into the meat of your fabric up here, it's not going to matter. It's really not going to show. Remember to put this up and then use your clippers. Okay, so now that I've got this sewn in place, I'm going to add 2 Chicago screws, which are like a rivet holding this in place. It's just a little more decorative to do that. And what I'm using is a Chicago screw. These are from Amazon. You can get them through Emmeline Bags. There's probably other places that you can get them. And they basically are like a rivet, but instead of requiring a rivet press, they just screw together. This is the threads. There's a male end and a female end, just like with plumbing pieces. Okay, and I'm going to need 2 of these, 1 for each end.
So your one side is flat.
Right.
And the other is like a screw top, right?
The pretty side is the flat side.
Whoops, where are you? I'm sorry. There. Okay.
Okay. Alright, so we're setting these aside. I'll probably lose them before they go in, but that's just how things go. Now I'm going to take a marker that I can see and mark where I need to install those screws. And I just use my white marker that I use for
Is it a chalk
fabric.
marker?
It's this Fons and Porter. I think Soline makes one also.
Okay.
And I'm going to come in a little more than 1/2 inch, and I'm going to mark my mark at the 1/2 inch because this finished cork is 1 inch. And I'm just going to put a little dot there, and I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. And I'm coming in a little bit more than a 1/2 inch because I don't want to make my incision with my for my screw to go in on my stitch line. I want to make sure I'm clearing that.
Because it would break your stitches.
I don't want to
then,
break
right?
the stitches, and then I don't know if that would weaken it.
Sure.
It's stitched twice, but it's just the idea.
Okay. All right.
Okay. And then now I've snuck into my scrapbooking supplies, and in there I just happen to have this little tool, and I'm going to line this up over my white dot that I just put in.
Does that punch a hole?
It's going to punch a hole.
Okay.
You can use your awl.
Did it punch it?
Doesn't look like it. Of course it's not going to punch it because
Yeah.
we're on camera.
Right.
And wanting this to be smooth and easy, it's not going to be. So I'll just pound a little bit more.
Now, would it help to have anything under that handle that would take the brunt of the hammering?
It would. I have this rotary cutting thing.
Because I just wondered if it would cut through the foam and the fabric if you weren't careful.
Oh, it's not. You want it to cut through the foam in the fabric.
Oh,
Because
okay.
you have to put it through that.
Well, duh on me. You know what I'm saying?
That's just the way it is. And of course, okay, now I have that little hole
Okay, good.
in that little piece.
Okay.
And I didn't go through that other layer. So now that this is in, I'm going do
Oh,
this.
that shouldn't be too hard then.
No, so we're just down to the foam. And when I do this at home, I do it on my regular countertop with just my cutting mat underneath it. And I think this is a little more cushioned.
Oh.
But again, this is one of those things. Off camera, it went slicker than a whistle.
I'm sure of it. Oh, I saw some movement there. Does that mean it went through?
When in doubt. Okay.
All right.
Okay. While we were off camera, I took my seam ripper and I kind of went into this hole and kind of went around so that you can see that the hole goes clear through here.
Okay.
Now I'm going to insert the pretty end of my Chicago screw into that hole.
Is the pretty end the female part?
Yes.
See, it should be. Okay.
It just takes a little bit of lining up. It may take a little bit more with the seam ripper.
The reason I asked if that was the female or the male that was the prettiest is, you know, if you're a bird watcher, that most breeds of birds, the prettiest one is the male, the most colorful one. And the duller one is the female.
That's so she can blend in and be more protected.
See? There's always a good reason. That's wonderful. Oops, you're almost through.
And again, it's the handy dandy seam ripper to the rescue. This is another reason why, if you're putting this through on this wrong side, if you have to make this hole a little bigger or somewhere along the way it gets too large, it's going to all be covered by the lining. So nobody knows if you had to doctor things up in this area.
Sure.
Nobody knows that.
All right.
So now we're ready to apply or insert the male end. And here you will want to raid perhaps your husband's tools, where he keeps things for pipes, because you got either Loctite or this Permatex. I think that's Menard's brand.
Oh, and
For
is that like
Loctite.
a glue, or what is
It's
it?
what they use to keep pipes together.
Oh, yes.
To thread pipes and keep them from coming unthreaded and to prevent leaks.
Yes.
You are just preventing this rivet to come loose. Now, I will tell you, you definitely want to do this, because the first time I used these screws, the Chicago screws, I did not do this step, and I have lost the Chicago screws from the outside. The inside is still in the bag, but I would have to take the bag apart to replace it. So it's good enough for me.
Okay.
Now, a hammer is also a screwdriver,
Wow.
and I keep this in with my sewing supplies and my hammer, and the screwdriver combo is from Yoder's in Shipshewana. So